Well, good morning. I guess we're ready to begin our September North Andover Council on Aging meeting. And first, I'd like to do a roll call. Dave Van Arsdale is here, I believe. Well, I asked you to mute, so I'm just going to read this. And then if you have to unmute to say here, I don't know, we got to do this silly thing, but we need attendance, so let's do it. So I'm Larry Smith, and I'm chair of the council. Dave Van Arsdale, he's here. He was speaking a few minutes ago. Maria Rosati, Tracy Shea, Jack Graham, Joe McCarthy, Quintera Costa, Irene is here, Dee is here, and I haven't heard from Jennifer. Is Jennifer here? Or Patricia Riley? So I believe that's our attendance, not hearing anything. Now we're supposed to read this notice about open meeting and what's going on with the coronavirus that the governor has ordered. And it says that we're going to be live and people can come and see us on their TV station or on the phone or whatever other device they have, or can come later and hear what we've been talking about. And the statement says, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th order imposing a strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Andover Council of Aging will be conducted via remote participation. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town website, www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by turning to Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 26, or online at northandoverma.org. northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members will be permitted. I guess that's because they can't fit into the TV. But every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technology means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive records of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate, please email your question or comment either prior or during this meeting to O'Brien, it's IOBRIEN, at northandoverma.gov. And Irene will take the responsibility of taking the question or comment that will be read during the meeting and respond accordingly. That's it for the getting started. Any questions or comments or whatever? So we'll go on. First thing is, you've all been sent the minutes of the July meeting. There was no meeting in August, and we'll probably hear a little bit more about that from Dee, and then we'll go on with the other meeting. Does anybody need to hear those minutes read, or can we just have a motion to approve them as sent?
So moved.
Second. And Maria. Okay, yeah. Moved by Joe and seconded by Maria. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's the minutes. So where did I put my agenda? One piece of unfinished business. At the July meeting, I thought it would be helpful to help us create our sense of who we are and get to know each other a little bit better. And we did some roundtable introductions. And there were two people unable to do it at that time. One was Jack Graham, and the other is Irene O'Brien. So I'd like to have you two just tell us, a minute or two or three about yourselves, things you'd like to have us know about you. So, Jack, you want to go first?
Yeah, no problem. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Jack Graham. I was born in Boston in a very strong Irish neighborhood, and I attended all the schools in Boston. I went to MIT when I was old enough and graduated in 1954. I then went to Washington, D.C. to serve my ROTC commitment of 2 years. And after that, I took a job at Avco, which at that time was in Lawrence, Massachusetts. And Avco stayed there for a couple of years, and they moved to Wilmington and also Lowell. Primarily, the work at Avco involved the design of missiles, and we also worked on the Apollo command module because the company had a contract to provide the design and the manufacture of the heat shield, which was used on all the Apollo vehicles. And after the Apollo crush was over in 1970, I continued working on guided missiles for using the new modern missiles and advanced missiles. And I retired in 1996 after 40 years. That was a very, very interesting experience, to say the least. For my private life, I met my wife, Fran, at Avco, and we got married in 1959, which means we were effectively married 61 years. And after that, we first lived in Andover when we were married, and then moved to North Andover in 1961. We have 2 sons and 3 grandchildren, and they all live locally, thank God. And after that, I had my business life of working at Avco for the 40 years. And as far as my activities in North Andover are concerned, I was on the school committee for 3 years and on the board of selectmen for 9 years. Mm-hmm. And I also volunteered for the treasurer of the local cable TV in town for 10 years. And I worked on as a treasurer for the League of Women Voters in town. And as far as I'm concerned, that about sums it up as quickly as I can. And I feel that I have enjoyed my life in North Andover. My wife and I have lived here for 59, 60 years, whatever it is. And until about 2.5 years ago, where we moved to Edgewood, like Dave does. It lives in Edgewood. And that's about it. So I try to sum it up as quick as I could, Larry.
Great job.
Fine. Thank you. Irene, you want to tell us about yourself?
Good morning, everyone. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Boston. I was baptized at St. Peter's, and I was baptized twice because when my parents gave me the name Maria, and the priest said, "Oh no, you can't have you can't have just one name." So they they put my mother's name in front. It was Irene Marie. So they rebaptized me again. And from there, I went on and studied in Boston, grew up at the schools, grew up in South Boston, loved the area. I became involved with the Boston Ballet Company. I danced with them for 4 years, and I had a love of body and movement. My first job I had was working at New England Memorial Hospital, and I assisted with the PT, and I just loved the connection of the body and the mind. And at that time, always was into exercise and movement. And I went to the Y in Boston, and I met a yoga teacher. And it was very different than what I had learned about the structure in ballet of your toes, heels together and toes pointed out, and the movement of the body. And I really became entranced by that, and I worked on a movement therapy, and I got a certificate in that and worked through that. And one of the first jobs that I had when I moved into the Newburyport area was I went to the Y because it offered for my 3 kids camp for free and other opportunities for them while I could pursue what I loved, and that was creating movement that older adults could do without having to get down on the floor, because the biggest fear was, even these women were all in their 60s, they wouldn't get down on the floor. And I started a chair exercise class, and I did a lot of home visits of private consultation with people. From there, I was also waitressing, and I had a dance studio in Newburyport called Fit Stop, and had that for about 6 years, and waitressed on the side, supporting my family, and went on to meet Alex McArdle, who was the director at Newbury, which is the town I was living in. I was lived in Byfield, but it was a parish of Newbury. And she said to me, "Why don't you come work for me?" So I started out with Meals on Wheels, and I learned about that and the process. And at that time, Meals on Wheels was coming from Ann and Jake's Hospital. It was a wonderful meal that was being prepared for the seniors, and she kind of groomed me into understanding the needs of the elders and the elder population. So I decided to go back to school, and I studied gerontology. And from there, I um, I became an understudy to Pat English in Salisbury, as she was the director there, and she was grooming me to be the director. But she said to me it was going to be a long time before she retired, which proved to be very true. And I had an opportunity to work in Groveland. So I applied for the position of director there, and I was so excited that I got it. I never asked them how much money I was making, how many hours I was working, or anything. I just was just so pleased to have the position. And when I first came to work, they said to me, "Oh, it's only a 13-hour-a-week position." I I was really taken back, but my first goal was to make that a full-time position, which happened. I developed so many programs, and we got a van for Groveland, and then the opportunity came for me I was on the Georgetown Council on Aging Board of Directors. I had gone into Boston several times and met with Emmett, and that was where my connection with him came from. So from there, I was with Groveland for 5 years, and then moved on to North Andover, and the rest is history. So that's kind of a very quick synopsis of where I came from. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Irene. I have a I have a question, I guess, Denise. In a way, going to have you on the agenda for two things. You asked if you could talk a little bit about the last meeting, what happened there
Yep.
From your perspective, but you're also going to be giving us an update on the senior center. That was going to be on it. Can everybody else please mute? You can. Do you want to do it both at once, or do you want to say about last meeting now and then a little later do the senior center update?
I can do them together. It's at the pleasure of the chair. I have all my notes, so I'm ready.
Okay, well, why don't you do it together then? Make it easy.
Okay. So first I'll start with a sincere apology for the last meeting and how it went and having to cancel at the last minute. When I found out that the agenda had not been posted, I went to town council and it was her recommendation that we cancel the meeting. And I do apologize. It was an administrative error and Irene and I take full responsibility. In no way does this reflect on, Larry's chairmanship or him. He did what he was told. And I don't want the canceling of the meeting to reflect on him in any way. It was absolutely 100% an administrative error, and we take responsibility for that. So I apologize to all of you for the chaos and confusion, and I promise we've put things into place so that it won't happen again. So please accept my apology.
Okay, thank you.
And for the senior center, so as you all know, it passed town meeting, which was excellent. We do have a general contractor. It is Constatna Construction out of Danvers. So the town needs to close on the property on Surrey Drive and Sutton that are both owned by Minco, one of which will be purchased by the town for $550,000, and the other was donated by the town. So I think you guys already all knew that. So the town meeting motions approved both of those. One tenant remains on the property. And as you know, the governor has put a moratorium on evicting people. So we're currently working with Minco to resolve that issue. But once that's resolved, we can start construction, and construction should last approximately 14 months. So now we're just waiting for the tenant issue to be resolved, and then we should be able to break ground and get this thing rocking.
Okay. Anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Denise about the building?
I'd like to ask a question, Dave. So what do you and the town manager expect to be a timeline? Knowing it's a guesstimate.
Knowing it's a guesstimate, I would say conservatively, maybe 6 months. It's a long process in terms of, working through the tenant issues. I don't know if any of you have had tenants or were a tenant, but it can be difficult to work through some of those issues. But please know we are actively working to get this moving because we want to get this project started as soon as possible. Hopefully next meeting, I'll be able to give you more of an update on where that stands.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
Next on my agenda is director's report. Irene was going to give us a sense of, looking at the last 20 years and catching us up on, how far we've come. Irene, you ready for that?
I am ready. It's a synopsis of the last 20 years. It's starting with 2002. When I arrived here in North Andover, there was a full-time director, a full-time administrative assistant, a part-time outreach worker of 12 hours, 2 part-time senior aides that were supported through Elder Services of Merrimack Valley. One worked in outreach and the other delivered Meals on Wheels, a janitor that was 2 hours in evening, and a van driver who worked 15 hours a week, only doing Meals on Wheels. The part-time, we had a part-time 20-hour program manager, 2 part-time receptionists. They never worked on Friday. They only worked from 9 to noon each day of the week, and a stipend accountant that made up the staff of the senior center. In 2003, the Friends joined the sheriff department, and we joined the Triad group. In 2004, we applied for a full-size van through the Mass Transportation. Our van drivers were paid through the formula grant. We bridged a connection with the Housing Authority, which allowed the outreach worker and director to be advocates for elders. With the support of the Triad group, we held coffee hours and meetings down at the Housing Authority. Lots of cooking was going on in the kitchen from Thanksgiving feast to St. Patrick's Day. The Friends purchased 2 large full-size industrial freezers and 2 full-size industrial refrigerators donated to the town. Our funds from the Cultural Council continue to grow. We're able to host entertainment and education programs. The Friends through a beneficiary were able to purchase a software program called My Senior Center, and they continued to pay the maintenance fee every year. The second van was purchased through a Friends fundraising. The Friends raised 20% of the cost of the van, and the rest was supported through a grant that I had written. The town hired a full-time van driver, grocery shopping, daily pickup, and trips were added to the programs. We received recognition awards for our Mystery Rides programs through MCOA. Mystery Rides has taken our seniors all the way to North Conway, down to the Hull, across the state to Greenfield, Gloucester, Brookline, and many other senior centers. Supper Club and Lunch Bunch tickets are one of the hardest to come across in town. In 2006, our outreach work was added to the formula grant, and it became a full-time position using the formula grant and town funds. In 2007, our outreach worker became full-time position covered by the town budget. 2 receptionists were hired through the formula grant. So we now had 2 receptionists were covering the full 5 days a week, and the town hired a full-time janitor for the senior center. In 2008, we introduced the Alzheimer's support program focused on the care partner as well as the person with the diagnosed. We received an award from the National Council on Aging in Washington. There is only one other senior center in Massachusetts that offers this program. Our first van, aged out, additional van was leased by the MVRTA, which gave us the ability to keep 2 vans on the road. The formula grant we used to hire 2 part-time van drivers. In 2008, a team was hired to utilize the space for better flow throughout the senior center. The reception area was moved to the current area. The back living room created was funded through the Historical Commission. The Friends raised $80,000 in 3 months to cover the cost of the staff moving to an open storefront on Main Street for 9 months. All programs were served and relocated. For example, St. Michael's yoga class, St. Paul's bingo, youth center walking group, Joy of Exercise, blood pressure clinics were done through the VNA and the housing community. Because of the triad group, all the painting, this was kind of an interesting point. We didn't have any funds to paint the building, even though we had it done, and they forgot to put in the wiring in the walls. So that created kind of an issue, but we brought in the inmates from the jails to do that work. And Donna and I prepared lunch for them every day, and thank you for that. And that's how we got the building painted and things done. Our friendly visitor program was supported by the formula grant. Our outreach efforts expanded to holding programs through Triad, and our friendly visitor coordinator connected a volunteer with older adults to spend time with them and call them weekly. This program has expanded to summer cookouts, soup days, and food delivery to the housing community. For 5 years, the Friends Group became the 501c3 for the funds that were raised by the Borderline Running Club. These funds that were received were used as seed funds for the money for the following year's race. The Friends distributed funds to North Andover High School, track team, as well as guest speakers for the high school. Stevens Library also covered the cost of the insurance for the 4th of July fireworks. A driving program was offered to the older adult for improving skills at Osgood Landing. The nutrition coordinator and an office assistant was added to the formula grant, which now had grown to $64,000. From when I first arrived, we were servicing 2,842 seniors. We are now up to over 6,000. On our Wednesday Fresh Table was bringing in 30 to 40 people, older adults, every Wednesday afternoon from June through October. The program was completely supported by volunteers who prepared a gourmet dinner for soup and for desserts. 4 years ago, we started our Saturday cultural events during the summer months. On a summer afternoon at the Senior Center, we hosted some of the most amazing entertainment, cultural dances for Chinese New Year, Irish step dances, Peru dances, comedians, folk singers, and ballroom dancers. Character actors have taken on images from the past with stories and poetry. Doctors have featured medical information. Groups have traveled around the world to make place to see. Senior groups have traveled around the world to many places they never left and never leaving the Senior Center. We have attended shows in Boston and hosted a Sunday afternoon theater group along with the RSVP special evening dinner programs. Our doll program is 25 years old, and we've delivered dolls all over the world from West Virginia, Afghanistan, Peru, Haiti, Panama, Florida, Houston, Texas, local hospitals, medical equipment, supplies through Osgood Landing. Our art class has received many awards received from the Tocqueville Fair to the State House in Boston. Our collaboratives with the schools, the youth center, veterans agents, and the Stevens Library has worked beside us. We have always been there for each other, whether it's broken a van or whether it's sharing a van because one is broken, or food needs, or a family that needs assistance. We share each other's information with each other. Dee has challenged the department to reach out and volunteer, which we have done through food insecurity programs held at Merrimack College. All the staff has been involved in that. The Senior Center staff through Corona has stood tall and been there for anything that's needed to be done. They continue to support each other through great highs and great lows. Every members of the staff has continued to be here and support me in my efforts to get food out to many seniors as possible. I am forever grateful to each one of them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Irene. Anybody have questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, then I would move on to the next item I have on the agenda is about discussion on, committees, goals, council visibility, that kind of thing. And I would just restate again, this started from like my own experience of getting on the Council of Aging. I mean, I was interested in doing some volunteer work in the town. So I look on the town's website and I see there's openings. If you're interested in serving on a committee, you can see this whole great big list. So I see there was openings for the Council of Aging. So I click that little box and fill out the information, send it in. Next thing you know, I get a call from someone in the town manager's office saying there's a little committee of the selectmen, they interview people. So I come and get interviewed. Then I don't hear anything, and all of a sudden I get an email saying, well, the selectmen are going to appoint me to the Council on Aging. And that happens, and then there's silence. Next thing I know, a few weeks go by, then I get a meeting notice. Well, come to the meeting. So I show up at the first meeting and hear what goes on there. And I'm still kind of wondering, what's it all about? I've never heard from anybody. I really don't know what's going on. So I call Irene and say, can I come in and talk with you and find out more about what it means to be on the Council of Aging? So Irene was gracious, welcoming, warming. Go down, spend some time with her, and we go over things, and she gives me a copy of bylaws. And I look over those bylaws and says, oh, they're kind of interesting. But that's the first I knew about it. And then coming to other meetings, I sit and listen, and I still didn't exactly know how everything's going on. So next thing you know, I'm being asked to be chair. And I said, I think it would be helpful if we did kind of a review, if we focused on the bylaws. I don't know how many of all of you were sort of like me, you come on, but some of you may have had a lot more information or been involved in the town, and some may not. But I thought it would get everybody on sort of the same page and understanding. Let's take the time to go through this. I think we would have finished it last meeting, but as you know, that got interrupted, and I'm hoping we can just kind of finish that today and then just move on. You've seen the stuff I've mailed out. Everybody's volunteered to be on something. So I thought now I would just like to do kind of a final review And if anybody has any questions, we can answer them. If not, then just move on. But it's good to really understand just what the purpose are. So we all have to.
We just froze up.
Did just
Froze.
Oh, there's
Am
Larry.
I?
Okay.
Do you hear? Can you hear
Now
me? Now we're back?
Yeah, now I hear you.
Okay. So what I just said is, the main purpose, according to the bylaws, is to be an advisory body to the North Andover Elder Services Department. A second, to identify the needs of North Andover older residents. 3, to promote and support programs designed to assist the older adult. And 4th, to act as an advocate for the older adult on state, local, and federal levels. And we get into what the bylaws calls functions. One is to identify the needs of older adults. Now, one of the things I hear when we have some conversations with Irene is, from her perspective as the director, she sees kind of the 3 major needs of the older adults is medical transport, nutrition, and socialization. Those are 3 general kinds of needs. When we're also, part of our job is to inform the proper community agency of the needs of the seniors and to seek their support in order to meet those needs. And it goes through a number of other kind of activities. You have it, I don't think I need to read them all. And bylaws lays out 6 different standing committees. With only 9 people on the board, I don't know that we can fully implement all of those committees, but whatever time it takes, we can work into them. And I think this has to be kind of a group effort, a team effort, a community effort. What do we, and together with the staff, think is most important? One of them was interesting, is a nominating committee. And the number 1 job on the nominating committee in the bylaws says to suggest, in conjunction with the council, new council members. And that's one of the needs we have right now. There are 2 vacancies on our council. And if we're thinking in terms of, as you've been looking at the committees and what the needs are, what kinds of people do you think we really need? What talents, what abilities, what desires to be active do we want to get, and look for those people? And 3 people have volunteered to be on that nominating committee: Maria, Jennifer, and Quintara. And we've heard from Maria that has a suggestion for a new member that she thinks would be helpful. So I'd like to ask Maria if she'll get on and tell us who they would like to suggest. And if we agree with that suggestion, I think our role then would be to communicate that to the selectmen and say, we think this person would be a good addition to our council. If you interview them, it's your prerogative, you appoint, we don't, but this is who we think would be good. And that could fill one of the vacancies. And then there's one additional for a full member. And then there is the possibility of 2 associate members that we could also nominate. So Maria, are you there?
Maria, remember that it's *6 to unmute your phone. *6.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Now, I know this gentleman. I know his background. I know him. Anyway, his name is Joe Nahill. I suggested that he apply for a position on the board. Joe has 50 years of public relations and corporate communications. He's a accredited member of Public Relations Society of America. Now, He's also, he was director of public relations at Merrimack College. Yay, Merrimack. And in he worked at APCO and RCA Corporation and was actively involved in the work at the Space Center, Apollo Space Center in Houston. And he was there when Mission Control landed on the moon. He was at Mission Control when they landed on the moon. He's a high tech, he's in high tech, everything you can think of to do with technology. Executive at several international communications agencies in his resume. He has his own, he ended his own active agency as president with his son. He publisher and an author. Home on Heaven Street is an MIT Press is one of them. And he also served as an adjunct professor at Merrimack College and Sept University. He's also has been on several boards of philanthropy, charitable, and business organizations. I know a few of them he's on, but we don't need to read those. His wife, Anne Marie, and they're both active in the City Center, by the way. Anne Marie, full-time residents of North Andover. Both of their children were educated in North Andover public schools, as well as St. Augustine's in Andover and Brooks School. Now, I think his asset to us is his years in public relations and corporate communications. So anyway, that's just a rough sketch of Joe Nahill. Oh.
Anybody have any questions or comments that they'd like to raise?
Larry, it's Irene.
Yes.
Yes, Joe has done many articles for us. One was on the 50 plus work off program. He wrote a wonderful article. He also did an article on the food distribution site and what the town was doing at the library and then moving up to the high school to get food out to folks. I think he would be a very positive person to have on the board.
Good. Thank you.
Larry, this is Joe. Are we adhering to our schedule of a 1 hour meeting? Will the meeting break at 10 or will it go on for longer than that?
I'm okay with letting it go on a little bit longer.
Okay. The reason that I asked is I have an appointment with our town manager today at 10:30. And so I have to leave shortly after 10 o'clock. And as I said, I did put information together that you requested, basically a health report concerning what's happening in our state and our town. So
Right.
I'd like to go over that certainly no later than like 5 minutes to 10.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that info. Back to Maria's report. If you agree, would somebody like to make a motion that we suggest to the selectmen that they consider appointing Joe Nahill to our council?
Larry, has Joe filled out the form on the website yet? Do we
Yes,
know?
he did. He
Okay,
did.
perfect. Excellent.
He did last week.
Would anyone like to make a motion? I guess Maria, you could make the motion.
Motion. To recommend Joe Nahill, our board.
Right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Joe McCarthy, second. Any discussion on the motion? No? So we need to take a vote, I guess. Do I have my list rather than just hear a bunch of noise? Dave? Dave says yes. Maria says yes, I believe. Tracy?
Yes.
Yes. Jack?
Tracy. Hey, Tracy.
Joe?
Yes.
Quintara? Yes. So everyone's unanimous that says yes, that will suggest to the selectmen that Joe Nahill would be a good member of our council. Okay. And you can see we do have we could have an opening on the marketing committee that Joe sounds like he'd be an ideal candidate for that, you know?
May I interrupt? This is not about Joe, but I couldn't, I tried to interrupt, well, not interrupt, but after Irene gave her report, I just wanted to say that is such an excellent, detailed report that I think every board member should have a copy. So that's my recommendation. Maybe at our next meeting, if we, you know, a face-to-face meeting or whatever, I would appreciate having a report. I'm sure all the board members would also.
I think that would be very helpful as well.
Great.
Absolutely, no problem.
Okay.
Thank you,
Good.
Irene.
Yeah.
Larry, I wouldn't mind just on this thing, since we're on the topic of just getting nominations and getting people on the board. Jennifer and I have also been advertising the position, kind of doing like a write-up. I run like a Facebook group for the Merrimack Valley Senior Caregiver Group. So it's been posted there. It's been posted on Mothers Groups. Initially, we we're kind of focusing on finding someone from a marketing perspective. I floated the idea out with some of the directors of the local assisted living, including the Brightview Eileen Donovan. So I haven't, with Labor Day and just a lot of everything, I haven't gotten just any follow-up if she actually went and applied, but it was something she was interested in and something we had a discussion about. So I guess I could only assume she has. But I did send an email just to try to confirm. I just haven't heard back yet. You know, I mostly want someone that would really be engaged, as you know, as opposed to just looking good on paper, but someone that would really, you know, take the bull by the horns. The other thing that, and it's not that I know anybody personally that fits this description, but if any of you did, when I speak to my clients and seniors in the community, I'm just hearing a lot of questions related to mental health and just how hard this period of pandemic has been on them, being quarantined to rooms, especially seniors within these communities. So I think people kind of in the general public, yes, their lives were disrupted, no doubt, but people within the assisted livings, and we in North Andover have many of these places, really felt isolated. You know, it's like all the food was just brought to their room. You know, even though they're in an environment with their peers, they weren't able to see any of them. I had a client just the other day just say she almost just wanted to speak to a therapist to just vent. So I would love to see a committee member that does have a strength in kind of psychology and social work, and someone that, you know, could help even me. Like I put together that senior housing brochure. I'm kind of good at maybe packaging information, but I don't really have a background in psychology per se. But if I could team with somebody that where we could just put together something, and it doesn't have to be printed out fancy or anything, but just information for these seniors as to like how to access, you know, a psychologist through Medicare or through Medicaid or just local providers, or how to just do, I don't know. I'm getting these questions quite a bit, and I would love to put something together, even if it's just a blog, on where seniors can turn to now that we're kind of in a new normal here.
This is Joe. You may want to consider speaking with Deanna Lima. She's a North Andover Community Support Coordinator, and she would be a great resource for you.
Okay.
Quintara?
Mm-hmm.
I would second that with Deanna. That is one of her jobs, is to get out there. What I'm finding with our seniors, we're calling everybody on the phone. That's what my part-time staff is doing. And we have many seniors who haven't even gone out of their house since March.
Right.
And I agree with you. The emotional toll that this has put on people, in the strain and just the loneliness aspect. Most of the seniors in housing are living alone, and they just really feel locked in, and they understand, but you know, they're the rule followers. If the government says do this, they're the ones that are going to do it. And many of them haven't even gone out of their houses. So we've been going door to door in housing and really trying to keep connected with them. And Carla has a very, very strong rapport with Melanie at Housing, and she's making connections there. And we might even try to put something together involving the housing community. And there's a whole, I'd say 20% of seniors that are living in their own home and
Yeah.
not in the housing community. And some are alone, some are widows and widows. And I think that that's so important, but I see the mental health aspect really blowing out here.
It's bad. And I mean, I've had clients where they've moved their parent into assisted living like in February before this happened. And they're like, Quintara, you can't believe how much they've aged just in that time. And it's not because of the community, it's just because of being sequestered to the room and not even being able to go out into the hallway. And so I would love to, be able to say, here are your options to consider, whether it's through insurance or through private pay or just through like kind of creative ideas, so you're not, you don't speak to a professional, but how to get that engagement. Because my concern is this could ramp up again, this coming winter. And I would love to be prepared to give seniors just some kind of, I don't know, recommendations.
I'd be very willing to work with you on that, and maybe with between myself, Carla, the Deanna Lima, and again, the library is dealing with the same thing of people they want to be social, and that aspect isn't there.
Right.
So I think all the support services from the veterans, same thing. Everybody is really trying to do the right thing and listen to what the governor has to say, but at the consequence of no emotional support is coming their way.
Right.
I know the library is doing an awful lot of work with virtual programming. So that might be something for the Council on Aging to consider as well, running virtual programs.
Mhm.
That sounds good. What do you think of Quintara's idea of seeking a new member that's got some expertise in psychology or social work, looking for that kind of person to be on our council?
I think it's a
I
good
think it's
idea.
a great idea.
Good idea.
Okay, that sounds good.
And if anybody knows of somebody, please feel free to just email me. I'm happy to kind of be the first pass at explaining what the board is or the process of applying. I'll put it out into my universe too, but if anybody knows someone, that would be really wonderful. Just let me know.
Good. And I think I could add that when send a note to the selectmen about suggesting Joe Nahill. You could also mention in there, we're looking for somebody in that kind of area. So if anyone just applies to the selectmen directly, they'll have some idea of what we're trying to find for the board. Okay, thank you. I think we should move on to another report. I asked Joe McCarthy, as you all know, he chairs the Board of Health as well, that, there may be some issues coming up there that would be helpful for us to know about or important for us to know about. And why not use one of our own members to also give us an update, as often as we think it's needed or as he thinks it's needed about what's going on with the Board of Health and the health issues. So, Joe, you want to tell us what you're thinking?
Yes, and as we discussed, I'll do this every month. Before I do that, I'm the last committee, the Tax Abatement Committee, and I want to quickly respond that there are numerous tax abatements available to seniors, but to determine eligibility can be a daunting undertaking. So what our committee has proposed is a simple software program to determine eligibility. But the rollout has been postponed by the virus. Hopefully when I'm in town hall today, I'll meet with the new tax assessor, William Mitchell, and further discuss this with him. Also, Melissa Rodriguez is in support of that too. Moving on to health. There's been a number of concerns expressed this morning about mental health of seniors that has really been impacted adversely by this virus. And I'll be focusing on that more in follow-up meetings. But right now, I just want to go over, from my perspective and to an extent, the Board of Health's perspective, the coronavirus in particular. when I first became the chair of the Board of Health, I invited Deanna Lima. As I said, she's a North Andover community coordinator, to talk about the impact on this virus on mental health. And the impact is serious and significant. For example, a recent article in the Boston Globe found that 27.8% of U.S. adults have depression symptoms as of mid-April, compared to 8.5% before the pandemic. This is scary, scary stuff. There's several articles in the today's Boston Globe on the pandemic and what it's doing to people, increase in suicide rates, depression, on and on and on it goes. And unfortunately, seniors have a disproportionately large percentage of viral-related mental health issues. Diana's comments and other relevant information is available on our town's website. Just scroll down to the Department of Health. Now, other than complete isolation, the best protection, which I believe all of you have already heard, against this virus is social distancing, wearing a mask in public, and routine washing of hands for at least 20 seconds of wash. If you want more in-depth information on this virus, the best source that I have found is Washington State's Institute for for Health Metrics and Evaluation, IHME. I look at it most every day to get relevant information on what's happening with this virus, the deaths, et cetera, et cetera. So let me start with Massachusetts statistics. And these are primarily from yesterday's Boston Globe. Cases in Massachusetts, 120,824. Again, talking about the virus. New cases, that would be on Sunday, 370. Death tolls on Sunday, 8,917. New deaths on Sunday, 10. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, the deaths were just 8. Every death is horrible, but the number continues to go down. And this is very important, and it's missed by a lot of people. The prime causes of death in the country, and certainly in Massachusetts, remain heart disease and cancer. For example, in Massachusetts, there are in excess of 60,000 deaths a year, which equates to about 165 deaths a day. Now, yesterday, 8 people died of the coronavirus. So that's probably like 5% of all deaths. But these people, they say, die of the coronavirus, but they didn't necessarily die of the virus. They had symptoms. If you have the symptom, they say you died from it. That is not necessarily the cause of death. It could have exacerbated the cause of death, but it's not necessarily the cause. So it appears, certainly in Massachusetts, maybe 4% of the deaths on an annual basis are related to this pandemic, and yet we've shut down our entire society. Don't want to talk about that at this particular time. In Massachusetts, more than 1.85 million residents have been tested so far this year. And the daily test should increase to about 70,000 by December. The test, the 7-day average positive rate was 0.9% and has remained below 1%. That is, every 100 people that are tested, less than one has the virus. Miscellaneous information in Massachusetts. Actually, it's national information. The average age of death from the virus is 86. For people under 80 in a good health, the probability of surviving the virus is in excess of 99%. No one under 20 in Massachusetts has died from the virus. This information may be dated as of a week or two ago. Now, we're in the early part of phase 3 in Massachusetts, which means that there's the opening for gyms, museums, movie theaters, outdoor performance venues, casinos, and so on and so forth. The church attendance remains at 40% maximum capacity. I have a real problem with that. I don't feel that the state or any state should interfere with religion. But that's a different story. I think they should have, we're not stupid, those of us that are religious that go to church. But that's a different issue altogether. There are 6 healthcare categories in Massachusetts concerning the virus. 4 in the green, that is, they look good, and 2 in the yellow, that is, they're looking better, but they're not where we'd want them to be. The green, positive test rate, number of COVID-19 hospitalizations, testing capacity, contact tracing capabilities, the yellow, deaths per day, and healthcare readiness. The state has created a rapid response testing units for schools, that is teachers and students if there's an issue of concern. Now I want to focus on North Andover and the COVID-19 virus. 39 deaths from this virus. Now, again, this information is dated as of several days ago. 5 people hospitalized right now. 338 people have recovered. The town hall is open by appointment only. Public schools, the HVAC system has been tested. The classes have been divided in half. Each half goes to school 2 days a week, and which helps assure social distancing. And on Wednesday, there's virtual schooling for all students. Merrimack College is open. They test their 45,000 virus tests a week at Merrimack College alone. Frederictus is permanently closed. Would not be surprised if there are additional closings due to this virus. Again, this is catastrophic on our economy. I don't think that, and people's mental health. I don't think it's been fully comprehended yet. A reopening of our senior center, a gut feeling, hopefully next year. The timeline probably will correlate to the distribution of a COVID-19 vaccine. But then again, we don't even have a vaccine for a cold. So I hope we'll have a vaccine for the COVID-19, but don't know. North Andover updates other than COVID-19, mosquitoes, no cases of West Nile disease or Eastern equine encephalitis. There's various spraying around fields, schools, and so forth. And this point of information, when you talk about mosquitoes, 1 million people a year die around the world, most of whom live in Africa or Asia. Lyme disease from ticks. Now, unlike the mosquitoes, ticks are really spelt. You can't see them, you can't hear them, you can't feel them, but you can get Lyme disease from them. 45,000 cases a year in the United States. And it can be fatal. So for mosquitoes, ticks, when you're outside, like I have a small farm, even in the hottest day, I'm fully covered. Long sleeve shirt, and I spray. You can use DEET, which is chemical compound, but I like a Placadium because that's a plant extract. They work. You can apply both of them directly to your skin. And again, in future council on aging meetings, I'll focus more on the mental health issue, but I just want to give you all a broad view of what we're talking about in the Board of Health, Department of Health, and what are these statistics show, and really what do they mean? And that's it. Questions? Can you hear me?
Anybody have any questions or comments? No? Well, thank you, Joe, for taking the time to do that. I think it's
I'll send these. I'll send some of my notes to our clerk, so that she can incorporate them into the next minutes of the meeting that we have. So I'll send them to Tracy Shea.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any reports or comments they'd like to make at today's meeting? If not, I think we could pause here and end the meeting and pick up work at the next meeting or in between our meetings. So if there's no other comments, would someone like to move that we adjourn?
I move we adjourn, Dave.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you all.